Folks, David Stewart here. It's time to talk about games. Specifically, I want to talk about this concept, games as art. I think that games are art, and I intend to make a little bit of a claim on how they are art and what the art of games is. Now, this video is inspired by one of my subscribers, Gabe Burchill, and I'm going to quote him. The problem is game companies don't view games as art. They don't see it as something that should be preserved for historical significance. That's a big problem because it also prevents games from obtaining a certain level of legitimacy and legacy. Unlike a famous piece of music, the creators of the art can squash it. And this is in reference to Blizzard taking down a private vanilla server. This is a server that ran a version of the game that can no longer be accessed on their servers. With Blizzard's third expansion into the World of Warcraft, it wiped the original world clean and built a new world with new quests and everything. It's somewhat like the old world, but it's not the same. So the original version of World of Warcraft can't be accessed. And there's no legal way to access it. You can access it through their servers, and apparently you can't access it through private servers. So the argument is, shouldn't that form of the game be preserved? Because it's artistic. And I want to talk about what the art of the game is. Now, for those of us who are gamers, the idea that games are art is a very basic idea. But for people who don't really play games, there's actually some controversy over games as art. There's a lot of people out there who think games are not art. And the usual argument, it's really a non-argument, against games being art goes something like this. Since Gake is a puppeteer, I'm going to play to his sensibilities a bit. Of course games aren't art. Gamers, they're just neckbeards that live in their mom's basement. Eeyah! It can't be serious art. It's just about killing people. Eeyah! That's our non-arguments that we usually get. And it sidesteps the whole idea of how our games are art and really just attacks gamers as this group. Gamers, of course, are a really diverse group. They're not just neckbeards that live in their mom's basement or something like that. They're people with wives, children, all that kind of stuff. And this applies equally, by the way, to war gamers, tabletop gamers, and people who play video games. That sort of culture is very, very derided and looked upon with negative feelings by people in sort of the popular culture for reasons that I can't really speculate on here, but you'll see it in media a lot. People are like, why would someone else want to watch someone playing a game? It's 'cause it's fun to watch people be good at something, maybe, so you get a lot of these attitudes. A couple years ago, Roger Ebert wrote a piece that basically said games are not art and they never will be. And the problem with that is that he had never really experienced gaming, and he didn't understand what in games makes them art. He was comparing it to cinema, which is what he's very familiar with, and I do think he was a very good movie critic, not realizing that people said the same exact thing about cinema 100 years ago. And people said actually the same thing about novels 200 and some odd years ago, that they couldn't be art and they never would be art. Now the attitude has changed, and I think it's because people don't really have an idea of what is unique about a game that has artistic merit, and that's really what I want to explore today. I'm going to do a little bit of proof of concept by showing you a game right now. This is a classic game that you guys know I like a whole lot. This is Oblivion. Here we have a game. It's got music. An artist wrote that and performed it. We have buildings. An artist created these buildings. An artist created these characters that are following me. A writer wrote the dialogue that the characters say, right? An artist created this cathedral, drew this sky. A coder put it all together in an artistic fashion so you could walk around in this almost living piece of art with music, plants, lanterns with fire, the whole bit. Artists created this. Writers wrote the stories that go into this, and this is a really good game to talk about in relation to story and what story has to do with games as art. So what makes this not art? Well, to them, it's not presenting a story that affects people. But we know that games affect people. And my little aphorism for this video is the art of a game is its gameplay. That's what makes games art. It's actually their gameplay. It's not all these other assets. These are just assets. And if we compare them to cinema, cinema has set pieces. It has actors. Here's an actor. It has dialogue. It has writers write the story. They write the dialogue. It's got lighting. Movies have all these things. But it's the movie as a whole that makes the art. And so it's the game as a whole that makes it art, including the gameplay. In fact, the gameplay is specifically where the art of a game as a unique form of art exists. So what makes Oblivion an art form is not all this stuff. It's this thing. It's the sword. It's the shield. It's the way you interact with the environment. It's the way you interact with your companions. And most importantly, it's all this stuff over here, right? It's all the leveling up your character stats, leveling up their skills, going through story things and getting, different titles. Gray Fox of the Thieves Guild. That means I completed the Thieves Guild story. And I think with Elder Scrolls in particular, it's not really about the story. A lot of people go straight to the story that's in video games, thinking that will somehow make them art. No, the story is just another set piece in a game. The gameplay is the art. In Elder Scrolls, you basically start off at the end of a sewer, and you are turned loose upon the world. You can do whatever you want. You can follow the quests that they sort of give you at the beginning of the game, or you can go somewhere else. You wander around, you kill somebody approaches you when you're sleeping and tells you you're a murderer, and they want you to join a murderer's guild. And pretty soon, that character's going in a direction that's unique and interesting, and most importantly, affects you. And that's really where gameplay has an artistic edge. Gameplay affects the gamer, just like a good story affects people that are watching a movie or reading a book, just like good prose can affect somebody when they're reading a book. A great visual scene can affect somebody when they're watching a movie. The gameplay itself affects somebody. When you feel that someone's in danger in a movie, there's a feeling of anxiety, hoping that they'll survive or hoping to have some release and have them die. In games, we have that same tension. We have the same tension and release. It's just from something different. It's from monsters out in the world. It's from the way that you're interacting with the story. So if a monster attacks you, you get this feeling of anxiety. Am I going to get killed by this monster and have a fail state to my game? Other people have made the case that what makes a game is a failure state. I think that's a very good starting place, but I'm thinking a little more broadly. A game has gameplay that affects the gamer. If you're clicking through slides and what you do has no effect on yourself, then it's not really a game. So if you think of a game like Book of Esther that really has a very non-interactive style, the question is, how does that gameplay affect the gamer? And if it doesn't, then it's not really a game. It's a visual novel, it's an interactive novel, it's some other art form. It's still art, but it's not a game. A game has gameplay. A game has like some sort of failure state. But most importantly, the gameplay affects the player. Another great example besides this, which is all about crafting your story, it's not about them presenting you with a narrative. Elder Scrolls is about defining your story. Are you a murderer? Are you a vampire? Are you some other kind of person? Are you a wizard that refuses to use weapons and rides a unicorn? Because you can do that in Oblivion. In fact, I might make a video on how to ride the unicorn, which is something that you can do in this game. That's what this game's about. But if we think of other games, a great example, I think, is Spec Ops: The Line. Spec Ops: The Line is sort of this kind of traditional. It's a standard like third-person shooter. It looks really good, and the set pieces are great, and the acting's great. There's a cool story that goes with it. But what makes that a meaningful experience that can only be done as a game, Spec Ops: The Line, is that your actions as a player then affect you as the person experiencing the game. They're not without any kind of effect on you. You're not just passively experiencing the story. Your actions heighten the effect of the story. It's like you're forced to kill civilians, or you're actually, there's a couple cases where you're forced to kill civilians, or you destroy this water supply. You watch a guy burn alive. Your actions end up having an effect on you that changes the way that story is taking place. The story is just one of the factors that contributes to the art of it. The art of the game, as I contend, is the gameplay. So for Elder Scrolls, it's a different kind of art than what you'd experience with a game like Final Fantasy, where they're just kind of taking you through the narrative. With Elder Scrolls, they're really just helping you to do what you want to do in the game. It's about your story as a character, and not so much about a predetermined story path that you have to walk down. And I'm going to apply this outside of video games. If you think about a really good tabletop game like Settlers of Catan, for instance. Settlers of Catan has a whole bunch of gameplay elements that then affect the way that the players are experiencing each other. Or if you play Civilization, that's a great one. Because that affects the way that the players view each other and changes their experience. The gameplay is the art. The feelings, the emotions that are produced through playing the game are what the art's doing. That's the effect. Art is effective. Like, that's the most basic, like, broad stroke that I can make about art. Art is effective. And so when you play a good board game or you play D&D, D&D can create all sorts of emotions and effects that are generated through the mechanics of the game. That's what makes it great. You can apply this to pretty much any game that has gameplay elements. Chess can even make you feel things. There is like an art to chess in that regard. That's more than just the way the pieces are carved, right? It's the game itself that makes it art. So that's my opinion about games. How does this apply to World of Warcraft? Well, the art of the original vanilla World of Warcraft is very different from the art of today. Today's World of Warcraft, that is. Today's World of Warcraft is a much more visceral and basic game. The World of Warcraft of yesteryear was about something completely different. It was about the meta of the game, which was you have to coordinate with other people, you have to cooperate, you have to build a team in order to accomplish difficult things that you can't do on your own. That's what World of Warcraft is about. That's sort of the meta part of the game. That's the art. The art was they created a world that was challenging enough that you had to create social systems to interact with it. And most of the people, when they talk about what they really loved about World of Warcraft, it's not, oh, I remember, killing raptors in the Highlands. So it's like, no. What they really remember is I made this friend and we did this really hard thing together. And I joined this guild and our guild worked really hard to down this boss. Our guild used to do this. We used to do that. I had these sets of friends that we always played together. It's like this, there's always that social part of it. And to me, that's part of the art of the game. And I think when you look at Nostalrius or any of the vanilla servers, what you really get is like a return to that community. That's what people are seeking. That's the art. That's the piece of the art that's missing from this current version of World of Warcraft that can only really be found in the context of WoW with these older versions of it. And so with that, I think I'm going to leave you guys. And the question I'll ask you guys is, do you agree? Can we refine this? Let me know, of course, also what you want to see and what you want to hear related to this or anything else, because I really, really appreciate the feedback, and I love the conversations that we've had about intellectual property, about art, about games. They're really, really valuable to me. So please continue commenting. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you have not done so already. I really, really do appreciate it. Channel's grown quite a bit in the last couple months, and I've had a really, really good time sort of figuring out what to do with the channel. So thanks so much for watching. You can also visit my websites. I'll have them linked down below, ddspress.com, davidvstewart.com. That's where I've got like my art up, and I'm always happy if you guys look at it. If not, that's cool too. Thank you for watching the video, and have a great day.